Hello, America. Welcome to Your Leo Nation, where we believe in and support the rule of law. I am the chief. Yes, the happily retired Chief Mark Garrett. Joining us today is one of our favorite guests. Not because he's a good guy, but because he owes me money. And this way I can stay in contact with him to make sure I know where he is at all times. So that's why he's a favorite. My best friend, Marcelo Arrue. Marcelo, how are you this morning?
Oh, good man. Just living the dream here in California. I hear it.
Dream or nightmare, sir? Just to
Yeah.
clarify.
Good, but
You
we're
know
doing
what?
good, man.
I know you are, and I'm glad. I know you and your lovely wife Lisa are doing great things and out there and work on strategies to actually help people with special needs. And I think you know what we need to do
Yeah.
a show on that later on because it's very touching. It's very moving. If you know Marcel and his family like I do, they're a special breed of people, and just probably call them my friends. Speaking of friends, and before we actually started recording, Marcel, I said I'm going to hit you with something about
Right.
friends, and this is off topic, by the way, folks. This is off topic about what we're going to talk about today, so just stand by. But
Mhm.
this is personal; it's important. I was in the kitchen a minute ago, and I grabbed this cup, and ironically, this relates to our topic today because this is when I became a captain, Marcelo, at Exposition Park,
Mhm.
which you know very well. It's where the Los Angeles
Yeah.
Coliseum is housed and a lot of state property. And that's why I was there as state police. And we're going to talk about state police today, um, taking over responsibility for security on that
Right.
park, 160 acres of state property. And it has the founding members. It was a brand new CHP command. Sorry, let me get that in frame. And it has some names there in the back, whatever, about the first CHP group that took over there. And I'm proud to have been a part of that. But it reminded me about all the friends of my life, the close ones, and of course you are one of a couple um,
Yeah.
special friends of my life. And I say a couple because the other one that we were mutual friends with was Howard Morseberg.
Yeah.
And it's been just a couple of days ago, Marcelo, it's been 20 years that Howard
Wow.
unexpectedly died in his sleep. And, you and I were at his funeral and I spoke there and we all kind of grew up together and kind of through different paths, but we all came together and eventually spent a lot of time together through
Yeah.
cycling. And so it just touched me. I talked to his brother, another one of my best friends in the world, a couple of days ago about the 20-year anniversary or memorial of this death. And so anyway, I just wanted to bring that up about how time flies, how important friends are, and I'm just blessed and grateful to have you in my life, buddy. So
Well, thanks, Mark.
you
Thanks. And
know,
I promise I'll send you those $20. I probably it's probably going to be a check.
I I I didn't mean to tug at your heart for the $20, but I'll take it however I can get it. So, uh, my goodness.
Oh,
Well, listen, this is such an important topic, and I've given this a little bit of time on purpose because I wanted kind of things to pan out, and I wanted to
mhm.
give the agency that we're going to talk about some time to really maybe publicly address the issue. Oops, I just hit my camera, folks. So stand by. Anthony, maybe you can edit it out for us. I'm kidding. Whatever. I don't care if you see it or not. But it's been about a week or so, give or take, since this happened. What I'm talking about is the attack on the governor's mansion in Pennsylvania, where Governor Shapiro and his family were sleeping. Thank God that they were not physically harmed, emotionally harmed. I'm sure. I mean, how terrifying
Right.
must this be? But they weren't physically harmed. But you and I, Marcel, have both been a part of security for your specific protectees, aka principals, um, and or physical buildings and property. And that's why I brought this cup today about Exposition Park, 160 acres of state property, multiple buildings, multiple facilities, including the Los Angeles Coliseum, Memorial Coliseum on
Right.
that property. So when I saw this news piece about the security breach, I thought, how does something like this happen? What protocols were in place? What protocols were followed? What security plan had been prepared, rehearsed, or not? Because it's astounding to me that this level of security breach could occur at this level. In other words, for a governor,
Right. Right.
um, it's astounding. So we don't have to get into any details, but maybe you can give us a little bit
Right.
your background. You have some very specific history, experience, and training in personal security as well as site security. Is that right? Is that fair to say?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and just for the listeners, Metropolitan Division, they they do the dignitary protection for any dignitary that comes to Los Angeles. And so that includes the president, the vice president, senators, um, prime ministers, whoever comes to Los Angeles, we do the security detail for them. And so, I mean, there's a lot of planning that goes on during this time. We know weeks in advance. Obviously, we're in constant contact with Secret Service, um, just because we want to make sure that we're all on the same page. So there's a lot of meetings that go on, and even with I spent a year working for the mayor of Los Angeles and doing her security details. So
But
um,
wait, and that
you know,
includes the residents,
yeah.
correct?
Oh yeah, yeah. And
Right.
so things have changed. And not because of this, but luckily they I don't know if people know or if you know that a couple of years back, or maybe it's been probably a year, that someone got into the mayor's residence, and so we had to change protocol because of that. And there was uh, a breach somewhere. There was a lack of foresight at some point, and so they changed protocol so that wouldn't happen again. So something like this that occurs, and it's not to point fingers on anyone or to say, oh, they made a mistake. A debrief is so important because you fix the issues so they don't happen again. And I think that people generally shy away from it, but for us, a debrief is more important than just briefing because we identify the issues that could have caused harm to a dignitary.
Well, it's a great point, and you're you're right, Marcelo, because sometimes in other words, I guess the best lessons, unfortunately, are learned from mistakes, and where they're talking about, I say, or mistakes. Let's put it this way: the best lessons are learned from events you go through. And like I said, we're not here to point fingers or bash, a fellow agency, but we do want to be honest about how did this happen? Where there are lessons to be learned from previous events, where there are lessons to be learned from other agencies, things like this, and what went wrong. Because it is terribly, terribly serious. I mean, this again. Thank God the Shapiro family is okay, because this could have resulted. This could have had national implications on so many levels. On so many levels, if harm had come to Governor Shapiro, and or his family, and it didn't. Now, it's still going to have national implications in the sense that, we're going to talk about that later on. What might other agencies learn from this? But so let's go back a little bit. So this is Sunday the 13th, early in the morning. It was 2 a.m. about when the suspect, his last name is what, Baller, I believe. Yeah, Cody Baller. Shouldn't even mention his name, but this
Mhm.
guy, he breaches the perimeter, the fence, and we'll talk about exactly what he did after this. But Before we get into that, Marcelo, I want to talk about what law enforcement agencies, intelligence agencies do or should be doing even before an incident like this happens. In other words, is there intelligence? Did the Pennsylvania State Police have a list of possible suspects or people who had made threats or people specific threats against the governor or people who had made general threats against elected officials or law enforcement or political views, things like this? Was this guy on the Pennsylvania State Troopers' radar? And by the way, I just want to make it clear, just like in California with the California governor, whoever he or she might be in the future, is the California Highway Patrol is the agency that provides the protection for the governor because CHP is the state police, and same thing here in Pennsylvania. The
Yeah.
Pennsylvania State Police have that responsibility. So was there proactive security protocols in place to identify possible suspects? So the answer is we don't know. Were there any suspects,
Right.
out there? And I know that your agency does the same thing. The California Highway Patrol does the same thing.
Absolutely.
Always combing through social media or other posts, identifying people that are regular protesters. They're out there stirring the pot the whole time. In other words, visual intelligence, taking the photographs, lining these people up with statements and things like this. But is that something that you are used to and familiar with, Marcelo?
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. We have entities in the department that are constantly combing through social media, and if they see that there's a threat, then obviously that's given to the security detail, let's say for the mayor. And they do a really good job because Metro is now involved directly with the mayor, um, and we do her detail 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. So if there is a possible threat, then we get that information. We have the person's photo, um, and so we're up to date with who may be a threat. Not necessarily they're going to do anything.
Right.
You have to understand, and one of the things that we understand is that someone that puts something on social media and threatens a dignitary, the governor, the mayor, generally these people are venting, because I mean, for lack of a better word, you'd be crazy to threaten the mayor and then actually go through with it, or the governor or anyone like that.
Mm-hmm.
What we do have to realize, though, and what is dangerous, is the ones that don't say anything, the lone wolf, if you will. Those are the ones that uh, really are a threat to the safety of a dignitary. And so the truth is, I don't know. Like, I've read articles. I don't know if this guy was ever on their radar, or if he came up, or if he put something on social media. I don't know if this guy just decided, today I'm going to go burn down the governor's mansion. Uh, But uh, you know, it's thinking about that. It's very difficult to foresee something like that when someone is just silent and then does it sporadically.
Well, you're absolutely right, and we don't know. We don't know if he was on the radar. You bring up a couple of good points there. That even if someone has said something in general, because a specific threat, I'm going to kill or hurt, XYZ person. This is illegal in every state, and so
Right.
that in itself is a crime. In and of itself is a crime, and someone can be arrested and charged with that. But making general comments that you know people who vote this way or people who think this way, things like that, they should be put in jail. We got to stop this. We got to push back and fight every turn. those are just general statements that are generally are not illegal, and so it's very difficult. You're right. So again, we don't know if this person was on the radar or not. He used a word in there, crazy, which is politically
Yeah.
incorrect now. So we're going to use it as often as we can in this episode today. The word crazy. Um,
Right.
and you're right. In other words, these people who just go ahead and carry out and act like this kind of on a whim, on an emotional, level, with really nothing to indicate that would happen, or really impossible to stop up to that point. In other words, when they get to a physical location. But before that, it's very, very difficult to identify. By the way, there are cases where people, especially the Secret Service, and I got a
Right.
lot of friends there, current and retired, and they do a lot of door knocking. In other words, they'll see things that are red flags, and they'll show up to a resident and say, "Listen, hey, we're so and so from the United States Secret Service. You haven't done anything illegal, but we saw some posts, blah blah. Just to be aware that we're watching, so don't cross the line." And
Right.
so in 99 times out of 100, or even a higher percentage for that, that's all it takes is for people to be made aware that law enforcement is aware of potential violations of law, potential threats against a protectee, and that puts most things to rest. But someone who's totally 5150 or crazy is more difficult to deal with. Along those
Yeah.
lines, it says prosecutors have charged. This is the level of crime that this guy actually committed that morning on April 13th. Prosecutors have charged Cody Balmer, 38 years old, with attempted murder, terrorism, aggravated arson, and other crimes. He turned himself in later on Sunday to police. Um, Investigators say Palmer told them he had been harboring hatred toward Shapiro and would have beaten the governor with a hammer if he encountered him during the break-in at the Harrisburg residence. This is from NPR on the 14th of April, the day after I'm reading this from. So, we know from the guy's actions that he was serious,
Right.
and he's proud about it. Talks later on about, he admits to everything, he confesses to everything, he's proud of what he did, and so forth and so on. So we know this guy is a nut job, and very difficult, if not impossible, obviously, to have stopped him, because he probably was off the radar. But I wanted to
Right.
bring that up just to let people know that even beyond what we see physically with the photographs and things like that, and I think Anthony will probably put those up during the show of the residents. There are
Right.
opportunities sometimes to actually identify these people, but usually not. So
Yeah.
so let's get into this, Marcelo, about what actually happened. So in this, again, we're not bashing the law enforcement agency responsible for the protection of the governor and his residents, but we do have to kind of dissect what happened to find out, like they're going to find
Right.
out what can be done better in the future to ensure something like this will not happen again. So let me read this again, also from NPR. So, according to a probable cause affidavit written by the Pennsylvania State Police, Balmer was seen on surveillance video approaching the piano room on the side of the residence. I got a little ahead of myself here. This is after he had been seen on surveillance video on camera by law enforcement inside the residence scaling the fence. So I want to stop right there. From your experience, in other words, they are actually watching him in live time, in real time, scaling the perimeter fence
Mark, you totally
into
froze up.
the
I can't hear.
residence.
Okay. Yeah, there you are.
I'm just wondering if they're actually watching this happen. Where was the breakdown? Why were they not able to intervene? Why were they not able to contact him before he actually got to the building? There's no right, there's no answer from our point. We don't know what happened at that point, but we do know
Right.
they actually saw him scaling the fence. From your experience, and I do not want to go into specific protocol for the mayor's office. Obviously, we want those things to remain confidential. But I'm asking, if you found yourself in that position, Marcelo, would there have been a chance if you'd seen the breach of the perimeter fence? Would there be an opportunity for an officer to actually make contact at that point before he got to the residence?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Mark. The thing is once you see someone scale over a gate or a security gate, especially when it comes to like the mayor or the governor, you shouldn't continue to look at that camera. And in other words, you should be out of your seat or putting it out on the radio right away and going towards that threat or that possible threat. There is nowhere in protocol that you continue to watch someone cause something that could be serious bodily injury or death. Because let's
Right.
face it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, let's face it. He was trying to kill the governor of Pennsylvania and his family.
Mhm.
He didn't know that that was the piano room. You know, he threw a cocktail thinking, well, hopefully that's where he's at with his family.
Yeah.
So,
By the way, it's a good point. That's why I want you
yeah,
made. In other words, you're talking about if you see someone, in other words, breaching the perimeter, they're coming over the
right,
fence or breaking through a fence, whatever it is, that you still can't you can't simply remain stationary. Now, it doesn't mean that it has to be you, the one on the camera watching it, has to move, but someone has to be alerted. Someone has to take action now to get to that suspect to neutralize the potential attack, or we're going to call it an attack right now because they've actually breached the perimeter fence. Now, again, we don't know what the protocol for the Pennsylvania State Troopers is. We do not know. We don't know the number of troopers that were present or other maybe other private security. We don't know any of that right
right,
now. But your point
right.
is that you simply can't sit back and just watch as this
Well,
person now starts strolling on the property.
well,
Someone has to make physical contact.
yeah. So, but let's also remember that he scaled the fence or the security fence, right? Got up to the house, was able to throw two Molotov cocktails, as far as we know,
Mm-hmm.
into that room, and then was able to walk out and scale that fence again and leave. They
Well,
didn't catch him inside,
this is
correct?
exactly right. And again, this is from the article, so no one thinks that we're just hypothesizing here. This is what the article says, if the article is accurate. But this is coming from the state police. So
Right,
Balmer was then seen on surveillance video approaching the piano room on the south side of the residence. He broke a window in the piano room and then threw an incendiary device inside, authorities say, before breaking an adjacent window, climbing through it into the residence and throwing a second incendiary device into the dining room. Then he was spotted on security video kicking open a dining room exit door, climbing over the same fence he used to enter the property and running away. Again, I just wanted to, what you said is absolutely right, but I want
right,
people know that we're getting this from the source. That's an enormous amount of time, and in this
right,
case, literally, not regarding the governor and the family, thank God, but otherwise, the physical damage was done. He set
right,
the residence on fire and had time to. I know we keep saying it over and over and again because we're either current or retired law enforcement. We love law enforcement. We support law enforcement, but this seems, Marcelo, that something, either protocol was not followed or the protocol they had in place was obviously not sufficient to prevent this from happening, and in this case even to apprehend the perpetrator.
right. So I'll give you my analogy and what I believe that happened. So it's either two things. One, no one was watching that camera. That's the first one. And that's just common sense, Mark. I mean, you have over 30 years of law enforcement. I'm coming up on 23 years of law enforcement. As soon as you see someone scale a property of a mayor or governor, or let's just say that someone scaling your gate, in your house. Are you honestly going to wait for them to break down your door before you even go, oh, there's someone coming in my? Of course not. This is just
Absolutely.
common sense. So two things happen. Either no one was watching that camera, or there was no trooper on the property at the time. Either one is bad. And
Well,
again, I'm not bashing them. I'm just saying that when you do a debrief, debriefs are harsh because of the fact that you are telling people or an entity or officers, here's where you made a mistake, and let's not do it again. Luckily, no one got hurt, but the fact that he not only scaled the wall, got to the house, broke a window, got inside, threw a second Molotov cocktail. I mean, the fact that this guy didn't go upstairs to the room because he said he had a hammer and he said he would use it. I mean, this could have been
as bad as it gets.
really bad. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
As bad as it gets. And
Absolutely.
again, we're basing our analysis, our theories here on what the agency itself said. So, we're trying to stay in the chalk lines here based on the information we have from a good source. And speaking of that, I want you to listen to what Lieutenant Colonel George Bevins, this is Pennsylvania State Police, Lieutenant George Bevins said, bomber was inside the residence for less than a minute, and that the entire incident played out over a period of several minutes and was a quote unquote very quick event. Now, let that sink in for a second. I want to go back to something you said about either there was no one watching the camera or there was no one on property, whatever. So we know, again, based on their own statements, it said that law enforcement, I'm assuming Pennsylvania State troopers, actually watched him scale the wall. So according to them, Marcelo, according to them, there was someone on the camera. Now, if that's
Yeah.
erroneous information, then maybe there wasn't. You could be right, but let's just say that they're right. So there was
Right.
someone watching this take place, but somehow this guy was still able to get from the perimeter fence up to the residence. Now, this statement here, the lieutenant colonel, Bevins says that he was on the residence for a period of several minutes, and this is a very quick event. To your analogy you gave a minute ago about let's compare this to someone breaching your own private security, your house, that you're at home and you're watching someone in your security camera. Do you just sit there and watch them, break a window and come into your bedroom or your living room, your kitchen?
Right.
Unless you are crazy, of course not. You're either going
Right.
to, run out if you're by yourself, whatever, or if you are prepared, like you and I are, we're going to
Right.
take on the threat and make sure they don't do it again to anybody else. So
Right.
this whole several minutes, if you have ever been in a situation where you feel physically threatened, and anybody listening, and there are probably a number of you out there, especially the ones of you who are in law enforcement, but for those of you who are not in law enforcement, if you've ever been in a situation where you felt physically threatened, I want you to try to imagine what an eternity that several minutes would be. 10 seconds is an eternity when you think that you're going to be harmed or worse, killed. And the lieutenant colonel says this is a very quick event. I mean, we've had presidents killed in 1 second. We had Donald Trump almost assassinated in a millisecond, But this person was on property and inside the house, the mansion, for several minutes. We say he was inside for a period of less than a minute inside. That is an eternity. To your point, he didn't know which room
Right.
he was breaking into. If
And
he
then,
was able to get into the sleeping quarters, it's very likely that harm would have come to the governor and his family. Um, I I am not comfortable with the way that this lieutenant colonel characterized the time that the suspect was on property. This
well,
was it's an
let's
enormous
let's
amount of
let's
time.
yeah, and let's be, let's be realistic. When you say that he was there for several minutes and that your troopers were watching him, that's not good. And I don't care how you want to glaze over it, that is not good. If you're telling me that your troopers were watching this guy scale the wall and approach the house and you didn't do anything about it, I don't care how you slice that, Mark. I don't care how you slice it. It's not good.
Well, let me say what he said to that, Marcel. It's just let me say what he said. Let me tell you what he said.
Yeah.
He said troopers had been alerted to a perimeter breach of the residence. Were investigating it while Ballmer allegedly committed the arson. Bivens said he actively evaded troopers who were here to secure the residence even while they were searching for him on the property. While they were searching is when he attacked the residence. Now, according to the lieutenant colonel, the troopers, after they see him breach the perimeter, now they're on property looking for him, and that could be 100% right. Maybe one or two or five. We have no idea what amount of resources they have
Right.
on property, but troopers are now, according to the lieutenant colonel, are out looking for him. That may be accurate. The question is, what is their protocol? Do they have anybody internal in the house at the same
Right.
time? We don't know. But my God, if someone is able to hop the fence
Right.
and you know they're on property, and either the amount of resources or the training or the protocol you have in place did not allow you to prevent the perpetrator now from invading the house, I'm sorry. I want to be fair here, but something is wrong someplace if they were not able to prevent this attack. By the way, with one person, it wasn't like they had 20 people hop the fence. That one we can say, hey, you know what, King's X.
Mark, you
We know what
there?
we can do
I
here with the
lost you.
resources we have. But one person, and they allowed them to get this far, man, to me, Marcel, there's a lot that needs to be done to improve the protocol.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I lost you for a little bit there. You there?
We lost him. There we go.
Yeah.
I
So
lost
I
you
know
for a little
you.
bit there.
Yeah, I know you. Maybe it's still recording, Anthony. I don't know.
Yeah, it is.
Go ahead. Go ahead,
Okay.
Marcelo.
So, a couple of things that come to mind here because they said they saw him scale the wall, correct? That's
Yep.
part of the. Okay. So, the first thing you do is go towards where he scaled the wall. So, when you say you're actively looking for him, there's an issue there. There's a bit of an issue there. First of all, you go where he scaled that wall, and I believe he did a beeline. He didn't really zig or zag. He went right towards the house. So if I see someone scale a north wall, just for example, let's say someone scales a north wall, I'm going towards that north wall. That's where I'm going because that's where I last saw him.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, I don't know their protocol. I don't know if there's one person on the camera, two troopers inside the property, which would be ideal because then that person on the camera will be your pathfinder, for lack of a better word, would tell
Mm-hmm.
you, hey, he's at the north wall, he's going towards the piano room. People that work a dignitary protection, the first thing they do is know their surroundings. They know, I know the mayor's mansion, I know where things are at. So if someone told me, oh, this guy's in the kitchen, I know where that's at because we go and we do a scale of that mansion. The people that protect her, for instance, protect the mayor's mansion, we know where the rooms are at, and so all someone has to tell me is, oh, they're this person's in the living room. I know exactly where to go.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, I don't know their training, Mark, and but to say that they watched him scale the wall and then they were actively looking for him. I'm going, well, why didn't you go where he scaled the wall to begin with?
Right.
So look, I don't I don't want to call and I won't call someone a liar or someone's hiding something because we have to wait until everything is all the investigation comes out. But that being said, You have over 30 years. I have over 23 years in law enforcement. Something doesn't sit right. Something
Yeah,
something was amiss. And I
yeah,
again, I don't know what it is, and I'm not blaming them because the truth is I don't know what it is. But if you are telling me that your troopers saw this person scale a wall at a certain location, then how can you actively be looking for him? Why not go where he scaled the wall? And so, again, uh, debriefs are harsh for a reason, and we all make mistakes, and I get that. Um, but when you tell me that a perpetrator scaled a wall and was inside the house for several minutes,
or on property for several minutes inside the
on
house for
property
about
for
a minute.
several minutes,
Yeah,
and was still able to get out of that house and back over that wall, I mean, you gotta just think about it. I mean, there's
yeah.
there's something that doesn't sit right.
There's something that needs to be addressed. So on obviously, so on Wednesday, this came a statement from the Pennsylvania State Police said it will engage a third party expert to conduct an independent security review. So
Why?
yeah,
Why would you get a third party expert?
yeah. See, I'm with you on this, Marcelo. People say, well, you want transparency, and I hit the camera again. You want transparency and so forth and so on, and I guess that's all fine, but
You,
this is this is not a case of a I don't know, an officer involved shooting, and you have the DA investigate, or you may have
sure.
an allied agency investigate it, things like this. I understand that this is a case where, again, I'm not saying that you shouldn't have an outside entity come in, but I'm the same way. When I first read this, I'm thinking it's do you not trust yourself to go back? And this goes to your point about a
Yeah.
debrief. Now, a debrief, in other words, there's debriefings which can be, very informal. You have after action reports, which are a lot more formal if they're done correctly, a
Right.
lot more detailed, comprehensive. And in an after action report, an internal investigation, I can tell you from California Highway Patrol, this would be an enormous internal investigation. I mean, it would be an investigation that no seasoned investigator would want to start, because they know for the next 5 months their life 24/7 is going to be in binders and
Right.
just writing all day long, interviews, and quite frankly administrative interrogations nonstop. And it should be that way.
Right.
I would imagine that the Pennsylvania troopers will do a parallel, investigation to a third party review. I would imagine. Again, that's just my speculation on that. I would hope so, but you would think with an agency as large as this that the first thing that they would do, and this to what you're saying, is to do a self examination, to do an internal investigation to find out. The next thing I wonder is, like, when was the last assessment done? And that's just kind of curiosity. Was it done last week? Was it done last year? Was it done 5 years ago? Uh, is there regular updates on this? Regular improvements and enhancements, and again, just we don't know the answer to that. When was the site vulnerability assessment done? I mean, that's
Right.
something that's just second nature to people like you and myself, and where I worked there at Exposition Park in Los Angeles. I mean, my God, it's a lot of work, but it has to be done. And you would think that this would be done fairly on a fairly regular basis for something like a governor's mansion. So it says that this independent review will consist of a risk and vulnerability assessment. By the way, I hadn't even read that, and just right when I said,
Right.
site vulnerability of the governor's residence and grounds following a security breach and criminal arson that occurred on April 13th. So, again, is there a downside with having a third party come in and do it? Some quote unquote expert is going to charge you $125,000. It's probably
Right.
going to happen to this. I don't know, but
Right.
it the first thing that seems like you say is like, listen, we are going to self-examine. We are going to conduct an internal investigation, an after-action report. By the way, I kind of misspoke because after-action reports are generally for something that's planned, not unplanned like this. I want to be clear about this. So I actually probably used the wrong terminology for this, at least for the Highway Patrol. After-action is really for something that was pre-planned, not like this. But you certainly do an internal investigation. The next thing I want to ask you, Marcelo, about this is,
Mhm.
so now every other governor's detail, whether they're state
Right.
police or they're whatever, the agency is, every other governor's detail, all the other 49 states now have had a chance to see this happen in
Yeah.
Pennsylvania.
Right.
And I'm wondering, if a colonel of the state police or the commissioner of the Highway Patrol or the LAPD chief, this sheriff, whatever it is, who's ever the head of security for a particular governor, I wonder if they got up the next day and saw this on the news. So, holy crap! You know what? Right now. I'm calling so and so, and I want an assessment done of the governor's mansion. I wonder.
You're right.
I'll tell
It
you
could
right
be.
now, I would.
Yeah.
In other words, it's a wake up call for everybody. By the way, a lot of these, security details, chiefs of police or colonels or things like this, or head of state police, they may have just done a site vulnerability assessment just 2 weeks ago, or a month ago, and I get that. But for
Right.
a lot of people in charge, Marcelo, I certainly hope this is a wake up call for them to go back, assess, and to the best of their ability, given what resources they have, manpower and money and overtime. I'm hoping they take this as a wake up call and say, "Hey, we got to plug these holes that we've identified."
Yeah. So, and you're right. Sometimes you look at cameras and say, you know what? There's a blind spot on the northwest gate. We can't see if someone goes through there. Um, do I think you need a third party assessment or a third party investigation? Well, that tells me, one, that you may not trust your own investigators to conduct a thorough investigation. And number two, why would you spend that kind of money on a third party? Um, number three is that your troopers, and according to the reports, obviously, they said that they saw him scale the wall. So what assessment are you making? The cameras are the cameras are where they're supposed to be. The cameras worked according to the report. They saw him scale the wall. So, I mean, the cameras are obviously where they're supposed to be. We're not talking about the surveillance. We're talking about the reaction,
Yeah,
right? We're
excellent
talking
point.
about how in the world does it take you several minutes to pinpoint where this guy's at?
And by the
Do
way,
you
and
not,
you never did.
right? And you never did. Do these troopers not know the layout of the governor's mansion? Do they, when the door opened, normally there is a security protocol within the mayor's mansion, meaning a door opens and an alarm sounds. Did that not go off? And if it didn't go off, was it because it wasn't activated when the mayor was, I'm sorry, when the governor was at home? So these are very important questions because you have to assess why it took troopers several minutes uh, to try to identify this guy or try to capture this guy or apprehend him, and you never did.
Yeah,
This guy got out. Not only did he get in, cause the damage that he wanted to cause, thank God that he didn't go upstairs, but then opened the door, went out, and went and scaled the wall from the same place he came in from. So, any person that's in law enforcement or just simple common sense will tell you, where were you? How
yeah,
far were you from this location? Because that's the other thing it comes down to. I don't know how the governor's mansion, how big it is, or where your camera room is. Um, does it take you several minutes to get from your camera room to that wall where he scaled? Does it take you several minutes to get from the camera room into the house? I mean, those are important questions. But again, do you need a third party? We just dissected the whole thing.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think you need a third party. I mean, you shouldn't need a third party in a case like this. And it's a great point you make about do you not trust your own investigators? Do you not, I don't know. Do you not trust your own expertise? And again, it's not a bashing session, but it certainly is curiosity. And I think we're trying to be objective here about our assessment and just the things that we're reading here in the media. Kind of, well, it leaves a lot of questions. And
It does.
and one final question. It's like, did they have enough personnel on property? In other words, was there just one trooper on the camera? Was that it? And and that's it in the house. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I hope that's not the case, but these,
Or was there any troopers in on the
well,
property?
again, according to the state police, there was somebody that was watching the camera. And again, I'm assuming it's a state trooper. I don't know, but yeah, who knows?
Right.
It's not definitive, but I'm assuming that was a state police officer, that's watching this happen. So, look, I think we've beaten the horse to death here, but I wanted to be clear about this and just be transparent with our concerns. And if I were in a position responsible for protecting a governor somewhere in this country, I damn sure as hell would be on the phone, and not just the day after, but still, no, I want more information. I want this. Tell me where we can upgrade, because it's a wake up call. And again,
Yeah.
a lot of agencies may feel they've done everything within reason to get there already, and they're happy with that. But I'll tell you right now, I am telling you, Marcelo, and you know it, but I'm going to tell you from a management point of view. Well, I was in
Right.
for a long time.
Yep.
I guarantee you, as soon as a number of managers and law enforcement around the country saw this, they peed their pants, because they know
Yeah.
that there are already some deficiencies in their own security protocols, and they have not been prioritized. I can promise you that. And hopefully they're addressing those right now, or at least sending up the chain of command saying, hey, we need more help here. So I'm hoping this is going to prevent lives and prevent property loss, and quite frankly, prevent embarrassment for law enforcement in the future, that people will use as a wake-up call and not let happen to them what happened in Pennsylvania. And again, thank God that Governor Shapiro is safe, his family is safe, and we hope that,
Yeah.
again, everybody takes this as a learning experience.
Yeah.
Marcelo Arrue, thank you again for being a part of the show, as you've done so many times. We'll have you again. And by the way, I haven't forgotten. I know you want to do that episode on. You're already laughing. You're undermining my joke, but I'll go ahead and finish it now.
Okay, go ahead.
You don't know what I was going to say, but I know you want to do a special episode on hair care products. So okay, so
I do.
well,
I do.
yeah, don't.
On how not to lose it.
Oh yeah, there's a picture of you in that. I got that. Yeah, anyway. All right, my friend. Hey,
All right.
God bless you. And for everybody out there, I know we started this off topic with the tragic loss of our friend Howard Morseburg 20 years ago. Hey, go tell your friends and your family you love them, you cherish them, you thank God that they're in their lives every day, like I do, Mr. Arrue here. And with that said, hey, subscribe, share, click, like. Help us to get the word out there. Help us to help law enforcement. Help us to support, defend the rule of law, and support this program any way you possibly can. And by the way, don't forget to donate to the Leo Project. We are about ready to support. There was a fallen deputy here in Walton County, Florida, and we're going to help that family out here pretty soon. I've got a phone call with our board today about that. So if you can send $5, $50, 500, 5,000 to the leoproject.org, I would certainly appreciate it. And families of fallen law enforcement officers would appreciate it even more. God bless you. We'll see you next time on Your Leo Nation, and stay safe.